You could literally Jess Guidroz, entrepreneur, teacher, father, whatever, man.
Yeah. All right. We just go off your Instagram. All right. We have Jess Guidroz here, founder of the Santa Clarita Vegfest, and you're father of two. And
Correct.
is that right? Two. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep. 4 and 2.
We met. How many years ago was that?
Man, I think it was early 2017.
Early 2017. You stopped by, interviewed me. You have a couple podcasts. You were running one. Are you still running the one that I was on?
No, Thrive Academy. I've sort of put a fork in that and turned a new direction, but it's still there. People can still listen to it. You are episode 12, so you should go check that out.
The new show. I don't know. I was a lot dumber then than I am now. So what I've done is made sure I know less now, and it works out better. But
let me say something about that, because I re-listened to it and a few weeks back, and dude, you really dropped some knowledge on there, man. And I just want to say, being your guest here today, man, is a real honor, because in my mind, you're like you're like a podcast OG. You've been around for a long time, and you're one of the first 3 podcasts I ever started listening to back Barbell Shrugged at, I think 2013. So, it's kind of surreal even for me to be here with you, bro. So thank you, man.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, I've been my lifetime goal is 10,000 interviews, and I'm around 1,000 right now. So it takes about a decade. It's been 8 years. So it'll take me a while to get there. I got another 40 years of podcasting ahead of me, or whatever it's going to be. It won't be podcast, it'll be something else. But I'm enjoying the ride. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you were moving to the West Coast and you've settled down there in Santa Clarita and dove into your mission. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Santa Clarita, we are the 3rd largest city in LA County, but we're sort of like, we're in this valley, and a lot of people, they don't really know about us. We've got over 300,000 people out here, and it's been cool because I've lived out here since I was 5 years old. So I've kind of watched it.
Were you moving back and forth, or did I miss something? I feel like
no, I wasn't moving back and forth. We were looking into moving to Encinitas, and
that's what it was.
When I got to go there, we were gonna move there. We had you, and then a buddy of mine who's a nutritionist. She lives out there in Encinitas as well, and so it was just like all signs were sort of pointing in that direction. But life sort of took a turn, and it's been quite a ride. But yeah, man, I just started. A few years back, I started my podcast. I started interviewing people and really making some good connections. And throughout my journey, my mission, it's funny, you set out and you want to have a mission, but at the beginning of it, sometimes you don't know what that is. And so I was kind of stumbling around and fucking it up and trying to figure out like, what is that? And I would try all these tried being a health coach, a lifestyle coach, and started my podcast, and it was great. And then I stumbled on a video one night, a YouTube video. I was actually in my classroom. I teach 7th and 8th grade. I was in my classroom about to close up for the night, and I watched this YouTube video by a guy named Gary Yourofsky, and it's called "The Most Important Speech You'll Ever Hear." And so I'm like, okay, that's quite the title. So I click on it, and at the time, mind you, I had just put out a paleo cookbook. I was like 3 or 4 months into my keto journey. And so I was on that side, Rob Wolf, like, bulletproof stuff. I was kind of diving into that world, and I really enjoying it. I really liked it. And this video, it just so happened to be about the treatment of animals in slaughterhouses, and like a lot about, that side of things. And the guy's message is essentially, to be an ethical vegan and go vegan. And the part of that video that really, I could actually say, it's a little bit cliche, but that really shifted my life or changed my life was, I'm watching it, and it just, I'm crying, I'm in tears, which is, and I'm by myself in this room, and I go, you know what? Like, I can't partake. I can't partake. I can't do it. No longer can I do this. It feels wrong. So I sort of, that was the last day I had meat. This was about 3 years ago. I'm sort of, I'm one of those people, like if I learn something new, if I try something and it works, or if something really moves me, I can just kind of stop something cold turkey.
You're all or nothing.
All or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that. I know that style.
I know you relate.
I like it. Well, I'm curious.
I know you do.
Before you watched that video, were you in the ethical treatment of animals conversation at all, or was that like the first introduction to it?
I was. My uncle is a hunter, and he has this this belief in and I actually see a lot of what he sees, but he always instilled that in me, just that, it's a very almost spiritual connection between you and the animal. And his belief is that, if he's hunting the animal and it's fair, that, so it had always been on my mind, and he would always suggest, like, he was kind of the one who turned me on to the grass fed and to, specially treated, wild caught as opposed to farm raised and whatnot. And so, it was always in the back of my mind, and I've always been sort of an empath. So I think the connection was just very strong when I saw, and you've probably seen some of that footage. It's brutal. It's just brutal. And
I don't want to eat meat from those. Yeah. I've gotten to the point where, like, if I can't eat something that I am confident was ethically raised and all that, is just like, I'd rather just skip the meal. And it's been, there was a point where I was just like, oh yeah, I'm not going to contribute to that part of the economy anymore, because the factory processed meat is disgusting. It's really disgusting. Yeah. So,
it is, man. Dude, that's cool. You see that, man. It's really beautiful. You see that, man, that you have that reverence for the animal, that you'd actually be willing to, to skip a meal, man. That's really cool. And it's rare.
Willing to skip a meal. It sounds like so bullshit. Like, oh, I'm willing to skip a meal,
It's so American.
But the thing is, like, skipping a meal is like, people get hangry, it's like skipping a meal. For the first time in human history, people don't skip meals. And if people say things like they skip a meal, it's like, I'm starving. Like, it's such a dramatic experience, Oh,
I do, man. It's crazy. And it's funny too, when fasting is so good for us. And so, sometimes skipping that meal, even if it is unplanned, it's cool. But that's why, like, it is funny to say that, but it's cool that you're willing to do that. And I think more people are, because of, obviously things like YouTube and Instagram that are showcasing a lot of these things, and people going into these slaughterhouses and capturing content and releasing it, and then it goes viral, so a lot of people, and then not to mention the documentaries and all these things. So and I fall, I think, in a unique place, because I don't know many vegans who had a paleo cookbook before they were vegan. I mean, I know there are a lot of them, but there's not. I don't know a lot of them personally, and I think that I have a respect, for both sides, and I don't think it's, I think if you dive deep into either side, and I think that's actually, if you kind of look at the landscape right now, is that's a huge issue we're facing, is people are having a very hard time listening to other perspectives and seeing past a person's opinion and recognizing, like, hey, that's your opinion and I don't agree with it, but I see that you're a human. You've got trauma like I've got trauma. You've lived a life the way I've lived a life. And that's the side of you I'm going to choose to see. I'm not going to just see you and your meat eating bigotry or whatever they might call you in the vegan world. And I do, I mean, I'm sure you see it tons, right? I mean, you're
Well,
on
I
social,
get I get
you're in the
called
world.
murderer. I get called murderer. Not as frequently, but there was just I've definitely had moments where like I'm having a discussion, online with some people and like just saying, hey, and um, you know, I I like talking to people who are vegan. Just it's like to me, there's like the vegans who like I know and respect, and it's like, oh, I get your perspective on this. Like I totally get it. And then there's the majority where it's like, whoa, this is very being very like conflict oriented, and it's like it's more important to, well, this is most people, is it's more important to be right than to bring love to the conversation and understanding. And anytime anyone is coming to a conversation from a place of wanting to be right, there's you're never going to come to an understanding, and we may not agree, but that's okay. That's okay.
It's it's totally okay. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's even having that, because how can we form a community, or how can we come to, an understanding of each other if we become so dogmatic? And it's funny, my dad and I were talking at the beach yesterday. We're sitting kind of watching the waves. It was a beautiful day yesterday at Carpinteria Beach, and we were talking, and it was just like, if we want, to have, or if we want to be right, and you're giving me these studies that prove that your meat diet or the carnivore diet is this, and I'm showing you vegan studies that show a plant-based lifestyle is the same way, we're literally going to meet. And it's like, and my dad was saying, he's like, studies, they show kind of what you want them to show, and it's
Yeah.
who, you really want to dive deep, it's who's funding the study, and are they biased, and double blind, all these things. And it's like, really, we, at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to what works for you,
Yeah.
and what works for me might look different. But hey, like you said, like I love you, man, and I see you, and I'm connected to you, and we're in this together, so let's keep doing our best.
Yeah. Well, I think what's common amongst most vegans, and also like I'll call them hardcore paleo, like, because there's the people who get into paleo because of, I want a better body composition, or vegan too. Like I've had a lot of friends who are like, oh, why are you going vegan? They go, oh, I want to lose weight. I'm like, like going paleo or going vegan, like adopting these things in order to lose weight is just like it's not a sustainable reason to do it. And there's just so much more to it. I think that where you and I would align in the philosophies is like, and what's in common with both groups is they want better sustainability of the planet, and they want, like, we all want the same thing, but how we're going about it is just different. And this is where we're having I think a really big issue is, like you were saying, there's this lack of communication. There's this lack of the ability, because uh, being in a community that's largely vegan myself, before, is like I learned so much about farming, to like the medicinal use of a lot of plants, and it really leveled up uh, the plants I ate in a lot of ways. And it's been really, really cool, because I'm even more ethically sourced my plants too, because there's also, if you're eating a lot of if you're eating just random produce and a lot of like corn based and stuff, then technically that's vegan, but it's not good for you, and it's not good for the planet either.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. And I remember that actually surprised me about you, because like I remember we had been, I'd been kind of watching your journey, and you at the time that we interviewed, that I interviewed you, it was a lot of like, a lot of like paleo stuff, so a lot of meat. And I was kind of, at the time, I think I was overdoing the meat a little bit myself. So I walk in your house, you probably don't
Yeah.
remember, but I walk in, dude, you're like in these like tiny ass shorts, no shirt, no shoes, and you're just cooking Brussels sprouts, and you're just like,
Shorts
what up,
shorts
man,
like
you want some
this.
Brussels sprouts? Oh, dude, show it off, man. Just like those, man. Just like
Yeah.
those. But no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, man. I think it's I think the media plays a big part too, like, oh, keto's the new fad. So it's like, oh, well, I'm going keto to lose weight. Oh, well,
Mhm.
2 years ago it was paleo was the fad, and then it was vegan because Game Changers came out. And it's funny, like if you're following the fad, you're right, it's not sustainable. And that's the only reason why, you know, going in to the plant-based community as for ethical purposes, because it was in my heart, it was in my soul at this point. There was no going back. I saw what I saw and I couldn't unsee it. And I even have tried once or twice to try meat, and it just, obviously it tastes, it's just the enjoyment in it wasn't there anymore. It just wasn't the same. And that's, and it's for me. And the funny thing is one of the hardest parts about going plant-based, and now 3 years plant-based, is working out, was my fitness. It was like, how am I going to keep muscle? How am I going to stay strong? How am I going to, I've got a nice little garage gym and been working out for years. And I'm like, man, I've always prided myself on my size. Like, I was like 6 months in, kind of doing it wrong. I went way, like, it was essentially raw vegan. And so I did lose a lot of weight,
That's
and I
a
was kind
lot
of,
of people go raw vegan first. And I mean, I have several friends that are upset about it. They went raw vegan. They're like, I fucked myself up, or, whoever they were following, like David Wolf. Like I got one buddy who was following David Wolf when he went super raw vegan, which, David's now, become much more conservative in his approach to things. But like my
yeah.
friend, well, Mark England, he did 2 years raw vegan, and it like took him years to recover from that. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's like, yeah, you did the hard way. Do you subscribe to raw vegan at all now, or is it more just vegan and you do a lot more cook stuff?
Yeah, I do a lot more cook stuff now especially than I was at the beginning. I still love to do, like in the mornings, we sort of have like our routine. I'm a big juicer, so I love to,
Yeah.
juice gin. We take like double shots of ginger in the morning with some turmeric root, and we juice it up. Sometimes I'll make a little green juice. Um, and then I love to have a smoothie, for breakfast or lunch, especially now that it's so hot outside.
Yeah.
So I end up being raw anyways till about 3, like, cause I'm
Uh-huh.
really, we drink cacao every morning, and cacao's got tons of fat. And so it's the ceremonial grade. So it's a really high quality cacao. So we end up, I feel full and satiated till about 2, 3. And then I'm craving that first cooked meal, like I'm
Nice.
ready to get down on it for sure.
Nice. Yeah. So
But
tell me about the transition. Like I know a lot of people, whether, I mean, that's a major dietary change to pull an entire like group of foods out. So you said you did it the wrong way, or, the hard way, or whatever you want to call it. You went raw vegan, and then, so what has been, so it's been 3 years. What was that transition like, and what's the impact on your health and fitness?
Yeah, it's so I think the hardest part of the transition was the first 6 months. It was learning new recipes. It was, okay, going raw, like, because when you're paleo, or when you're just not vegan, you think vegans eat salad. Like, oh, you're
Yeah.
vegan, what do you eat, salad all day? Like, that's the joke, right? Like, salad
Yeah.
and fruit. Like, so that's kind of what you do, and you start following people and you learn. And I think the journey really changed for me when I got locked into some good recipes, some good pastas, some good, rice and veggie stir fries and sushi, just different things. I still do
Yeah.
the tofu thing. I still don't do, I can't do soy. My body just doesn't react well. Um,
Right.
What's funny though, if I was to say the biggest shift I've noticed, and this is not even a check in the against column of paleo keto, because I don't even believe in that. I think I was doing it wrong.
You're doing the paleo
But
keto.
the biggest difference I've noticed is, yeah, somewhat so, because I think the biggest shift I've noticed is digestion.
That was actually my
I
next
was a bit
question.
constipated for, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My dad struggles with it. My grandpa struggled with it. I
Mm.
struggle with it. I was like you, in my teens, working out, slamming weight gainer, slamming these whey protein shitty things, and just
Yeah.
and just eating 20 nuggets and double cheeseburgers, and just I think it just I fucked myself up,
Yeah.
and I did my stomach, and so I would literally, I was going to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a week, and I thought it was normal. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, like I felt fine. My energy's always been good. Even when I was constipated, my energy was great. I don't know why. My mom's that way. I think I have some of her DNA. But when
Maybe
I
you just don't
was
need to shit
keto
much,
and paleo, yeah, man. But it's funny because when I was keto or paleo, like I was going every day because I was taking lots of probiotics and Metamucil at night, and so I was still going. But when I went raw vegan and then just stayed plant-based, I learned that I just don't think my body does super well with digesting meat. And so
Mm.
that's the biggest shift is I'm my regularity, I go 2, sometimes 3 times a day now, which is literally my whole life. I've never had that. Um, and then obviously that plays into, slightly more energy and maybe a little bit more mental clarity, but it's not, I still won't even say that that's going plant-based. I think it's that could help, but then it's implementing mushrooms or implementing cacao, which has tons of fiber, and different things that have really sort of contributed to that improved digestion. But
Yeah, I
that's
think we're the
probably been
opposite in
the
that.
biggest
It's
shift.
like I shit too easy. Like I actually like if I eat I actually like have to watch my fiber intake. So if I eat too many vegetables, especially raw, like 8 hours later I'll find it in the toilet. So it's it's just like I'm actually careful with it. Which I wonder.
Wow.
I got a question for you. Is like which I've wondered for myself. Because I mean I've been on a vegan diet for a week or two at a time at different retreats. And I've noticed like my shits during that time are just way too runny. People are just probably opting out of this show at this point. But it's just like too frequent, too running. I'm just like, but I also know like there's an adjustment period. No matter like if I go to another country and I'm just eating different kinds of food, that's what happens. And I remember talking to some people who are like, man, this is really jacking me up. I'm like, it's gonna take you a while to adjust. Like if you've been eating like this and you come to retreat and eat like this for a week, it's just you're gonna be it's gonna feel like you're messed up, or cleaning you out or whatever it is that's going on. Uh, so I'm curious about that. Like, did you have like a big adjustment in digestion? Did it immediately? I mean, it sounds like you weren't having movements regularly, and this made you regular. Whereas I'm
Mhm.
like I would be, yeah, yeah. I would have to do it for longer to know
Yeah,
if it would
man.
work for me.
I think so. I think so. And like I think doing it the right way like would help too, because I'm sure on these retreats you went on, like I know like on like if you take a trip and you do some ayahuasca, they usually it's the same thing, right? They make you it's like a raw vegan diet for 2 or 3 days, and people experience that, and it's like an overload of fiber, and you kind of have a digestion like my wife, and my wife went vegan with me at the same time, and she's noticed a big difference when she implements or incorporates more carby, starchy foods like lentil pastas, or like a really high quality bread, more rice, stuff like that. And it does help her. It slows down
Yeah,
and it helps a bit with that. And so, and I even noticed the same thing now because my GI tract completely radically changed. And now I'm similar to you where sometimes I have to slow it down. Like if I know I'm going to, go to a retreat or be gone for a few days, I'm going to lower my raw food intake a bit, and so I feel you,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is very unusual for people to consider. I mean, if you rewind 5 years ago for both of us, we were probably not. We weren't paying attention to digestion. It was more of, or 10 years ago, it was like no digestion. Maybe we're checking in on our energy, but not in touch enough with our bodies to actually know what the fuck that means. And then, just pound more NO explode in coffee, and then make
Yes.
making the transition away from how do I make my muscles as big as possible to what's actually happening inside my body. It's because the shitter is like the place where I like if I go in the bathroom after somebody and looking, I was like, I need to look at your shit, or you need to tell me about your shit. Like they're like, am I, how am I eating? I was like, what's your shit like? Let's just start there.
It's true. It's true. It's so funny. One of my first podcasts, I had on a naturopathic doctor, and I asked her, "What's the first question you ask somebody when they come to see you?" She said, "How often are you pooping, and what does it look like?" Those are the first two questions she asked.
Yeah,
If you want to know a person's health, that's where you go. And it's funny when you said earlier, you're like, people are logging off now, tuning out. I bet you more people are like interested in this dialogue because no one really does talk about it, but it's like it's so important.
it's uncommon. It's uncommon. Okay, so yeah, what's the journey been like? How's
It
the health
is.
and fitness been the last 3 years? Like, so you went from basically a meathead to changing to a vegan diet for ethical reasons. And what was it, one of those things you're like, you know what, I'm willing to lose some weight, I'm willing to change how I relate to myself in order to have a better contribution to the planet? I mean, was that the mindset? And then what was that? I'm curious about what was that shift in your relationship to your body?
Brother, I feel like you asking me that is I don't know. Watching you has been very helpful. I got to tell you, man, because I love how I know that was a big shift for you, was going from that meathead. It's all about the strength and the numbers to how does this feel, functionality, mobility. And that's really, that journey and learning to love myself for being 20 pounds, 25 pounds lighter, and, not the guy that shows up and my friends I haven't seen in a while grabbing your arms like, dude, look at you, bro. Like, you don't get that anymore. And some of that
Yeah.
is especially as a man, is very gratifying, and learning to see yourself in a different light, in a new way. It really does. It does a lot. And to this day, I can't even lie to you, man. It's still a struggle of mine finding, that compassion for myself, to be able to look at myself and be like, hey, I'm not as strong. Maybe, the numbers aren't the same. I don't fill out a large the same way I used to, but you know what I mean? I feel great. My body's way more functional than it's ever been. I'm lighter. I can run farther. I'm in the best shape when I get on the basketball court. I'm outrunning these young guys. Like, and it feels, in that aspect, it's very gratifying. So,
Well, if you check your Instagram, you look
and
good,
I
man.
think a lot. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And I love it. I really love it. I think that's very important too, is the fact that I just love, being in shape. I love being flexible. I love being strong, and it feels good to me. And that, that really does help, with the whole compassion for yourself. And my wife, she's dope, man. She's always telling me like, like, you look great, yada, yada. And I feel good, and it's good to hear, but you know how it is. You've got to feel it yourself. And I think,
Yeah.
um, following people who are doing it as well. Like, a lot of people will do that. And I recommend it. People do that too, though. Like, if you go vegan or if you go paleo, like, start following people in that field and really dive into their work, like dive into what they're doing specifically. So if you're thinking about going plant-based, but you don't want to lose your muscle, follow Nimai Delgado, follow Badass Vegan, follow these guys who are bodybuilders who are vegan, and watch Game Changers, like watch these movies that they'll give you a blueprint. There is a blueprint. There are people doing it, but I think we so often will you know kid ourselves into thinking we can't do something because of a stereotype we've heard, or a myth we've heard about that diet, or lifestyle, that it might not be true. And so that was sort of my shift, was lots of internal work. It's sort of where I started to work with, like, a lot of ceremonies. My wife and I, we have a ceremony every morning, a cacao ceremony every morning. And I got to ask, Mike, have you ever had ceremonial cacao?
I love it. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. My mastermind, we had a retreat down in Costa Rica, and it was really cool to take people from the fitness industry, weightlifting coaches and kettlebell guys, and like introduced them to the first plant medicine ceremony, which was, a cacao ceremony. And I've sat in a lot of different types of cacao ceremonies, and one of my favorites was being at a permaculture farm, and they basically had like picked it and made it that day type of thing. Cacao. Yeah, I highly recommend a cacao ceremony, or one every day. That sounds great.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool, once again, through the podcast, I met this girl who, she's a millionaire by the time she was like 27. She's the founder, CEO, whatever, of Delighted by Hummus. I'm not sure if you've heard of that company. She makes dessert hummus. They're in Whole Foods and Sprouts, all that.
Dessert
but she came on my podcast, and dessert hummus. It's called Delighted by Desserts, and it's like they're at, like I said, a lot of the major health food chains. But I actually didn't find her through Delighted by. I found her through cacao. I had heard through another lady. She said, you have to try this ceremonial grade cacao. This girl flies to Guatemala and Peru. They harvest the cacao there. It's whole bean, so it's like, it's blessed by a shaman, and they fly it back to America. And she lives in California. She lives in like Laguna Beach. And I'm like, okay. So I start following this girl. I tried the cacao. It's amazing. I get down there and I interview her, and the whole thing ended up being about this cacao. And we had this incredible ceremony. She's led several since then. She's a huge sponsor of our Vegfest. She's just a super rad, awesome human being. But what I've noticed is, so it used to be coffee, and in the morning, man, it's how it is. It's a heart opener. And my wife and I, there's something sacred about sitting in the morning. My 2-year-old and 4-year-old will put on Moana or some movie for him to watch. Not proud of that, but I will do it temporarily, so that my wife and I can sit outside, in the sun or under a tree, and we'll set our intention. What's your intention for the day? And as she's setting her intention, I'm asking her questions, and why that, and have you been feeling? And she shares it with me as we're sipping, and then she does the same to me. And it's like this thing that has allowed us to connect on a level that we have never been nearly as connected in. And I think it's not, the cacao is like the bonus. I just think it's breaking bread with your lover or your loved one and setting intentions with each other. That is like one of the most powerful things that, I was never taught that, I was never, no, my parents didn't do that, but it's really unique, and it's cool now too, because we have some friends who are a little bit more open-minded, who will come over, and instead of drinking beer or wine immediately, maybe that follows later on, but we'll sit and we'll just pour a cup of cacao and set our intentions. And it's like this, it goes from like, hey, what's this? Oh, the weather. Oh, the quarantine, crazy, yada, to like, what's your intention for life? Like, what do you want out of today? Yeah. And like, it just takes it from here, and it just digs you deeper and connects you. And it's, that actually might be more life-changing than going plant-based, to be honest.
Yeah. The intent, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I know quite a few people, not many, quite a few people who have a ceremony for themselves, set the intention of the day, say a little prayer. And I have my own thing I do in the mornings. And I think what you're sharing is beautiful, because doing that with another person every day, setting the intention, it sets the tone for the whole day. And when you do it with somebody else, they can actually remind you of your intention throughout the day. Does that happen?
All the time. The time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it lets you know where they're at.
Yeah. You inspired me. I want to, I have, like I said, I have my own little thing. I like to be by myself, but I'm dating this new woman, and she was like a few weeks into hanging out. She says, you're the most intentional person I've ever met. Like everything, like from the food you eat, how you sleep, how you drive, how you like everything is on purpose. So like everything, like the water you're drinking, all this stuff is like just blows. She's like blown away by it. And she's a mindfulness, she's a psychotherapist that teaches mindfulness. So like she gets it. But I was just thinking, I was like, oh yeah, like when we're hanging out, it'd be good to just set an intention at the beginning of the hangout of like, what's your intention for the day? It's a great way to build a solid relationship.
It really is. And it's like a daily check-in, because like, one of us will wake up and we're just frustrated. And you can always tell like right away, like the energy's off. And there's something about having that space. Like it's like a sacred space. I even have like so I have like a tribal ceremonial Pandora station that I play, and it's like tribal flutes and all that. And
Oh yeah.
because it's about that, because you have to, right? It kind of sets the, okay, now I'm in a safe space and she can open up and really be honest about what she's feeling. And there's no judgment, because I'm about to share mine and get vulnerable with you. So I'm really like open, and I'm not mad at you. I want to know, I want to be here for you. And it's you're right, man. It is powerful. And I agree with you. The new girl you're dating, bro, you are a very intentional person. And you're very present. I'll never forget. It's so funny, man. We when I was out at your house in Encinitas, I was like, man, it's like everybody in Encinitas is enlightened, dude. And you like looked at me and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't say enlightened, but they're definitely a different vibe out here. And I was, hey, and I had just walked in your door, so like I was kind of like up here, right? Like I just meeting you, and it's it could be awkward, and like I just man, it's beautiful here in Encinitas, yada yada. They're in light, and you just, bro, like dead, like it was. I'll never forget it, man. Clearly.
Yeah, I've studied enough to realize that the enlightenment word is being thrown around in the wrong direction like way too often. We're like, oh, I'm gonna, they start talking and then they drop the enlightenment word. I'm like, you are in the opposite direction of enlightenment, because enlightenment doesn't include fantasy, and you're living in a fantasy. You're out of touch. Like when people are talking, it's like you're out of touch with reality. Like that's the opposite. Like get rid of the illusion, whatever. But when you're in the illusion, which I'm in illusion, I'm not saying I'm enlightened, but I know enough to like, I know when I'm not seeing it.
Amen. Same, man. And
Yeah.
I'm actually curious, bro. I saw you posted something. I think it was yesterday, the day before. But what is your morning routine looking like these days?
You know what? It varies. I look at my morning routine. I do it the same way as my workouts. So it's like, what do I have for the day? And like I know when I go to bed what I have for the day the next day. So I wake up and I don't touch my phone for the first couple hours. And it varies. I'm always having new experiences and integrating new things in. So this past weekend I had just some of the most amazing yoga. I did 2 days of yoga. My friends were getting married. There were 7 of us in attendance, and so we spent 3 days together. And we opened up 2 of the mornings with kirtan, which is just singing and playing instruments. Which it was the first time I've done like that much chanting and singing and playing of instruments for over an hour, and then getting into breath work, and then into like a vinyasa flow type thing. And it was just like 2.5 hours later, I'm just like, oh my God, this feels amazing. But I took pieces of that. Is like I've never really put vinyasa flow, like that style of yoga, into my morning routine. And then I found myself, normally I do about 10 minutes of movement, and then I do another 10-15 minutes of, I do a lot of breath of fire, working on my breathing mechanics, getting warmed up, getting charged up. And then I do some nollie, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically where you're rolling your belly from
No.
left to right and right to left. Like if you go online and look at like yoga belly roll, you'll be able to see people doing it. But I can contract and create waves through my abdomen and basically massage my organs from the inside. But it also releases any tension I have in my gut. And then I usually, go take a good shit afterwards. but I also noticed that it like releases everything even up into my neck and my shoulders, all the way up to my head. And so everything starts with the breath. And so I do that, but and I drink a big glass of water before that. I take some stuff called Cognibiotics. Cognibiotics. It's by Biooptimizers, and uh, it's actually probiotics that are for the purpose of uh, creating better cognition, because so much of it originates in the gut. By the way, I don't know if are you familiar with Biooptimizers?
Not really.
Okay, they're super cool because they have like these next level like digestive enzyme. Like it. So one of the founders and owners is vegan, and the other one is like keto paleo, and they play well together. And so they create probiotics, digestive enzymes. It's like their primary thing, but they also have, if you're keto or vegan, they actually have some pretty cool tools to make it more effective. So I take that kind of a supplement in the morning. But yeah, I do the breath work. I sit in meditation somewhere in there. It might be after the movement, but before the breath. Sometimes after the breath, I sit in just quiet meditation, no timer. I just let it go, and then I make myself a nice little butter coffee, and get my day started. And that's pretty much the morning routine. Yeah. What's yours?
Nice, man. I love that, man. I love the fluidity. I love how you just kind of going with how it feels. That's cool, man. I think
Yeah.
that I used to be, like I'm just getting there now. I used to be very rigid in my routine, and now I'm just learning like, nah, that's not life, man. And you gotta flow with it, whatever you got for the day, whatever time you got. But mine's wake up in the morning. First thing I do is I juice. I take my juicer out while my kids, they're over there with my wife. She's still breastfeeding them both. And so they're usually over there for about 20 minutes. So I'll just make us a big juice. Usually we'll each take a shot or two of ginger with some turmeric root. And then I'll make us like an orange juice, like I have a cold pressed one. So it's like fresh pressed orange juice, or sometimes just lemons or whatever, put in 32 ounces of water down the hatch. And then, yeah, we'll kind of get the kids situated. I will, my wife will get the music set up outside. We'll start making the cacao, and then I'll actually use a little bit of cannabis, and then obviously set an intention before that, go out, drink our cacao together, have that little moment. And then usually we either go into the day with the kids, or if I'm lucky, I get to go into the gym, work out, do some movement stuff. We after we have our cacao ceremony, we both meditate right there, and then do some sort of movement, and that's it, man. But like it's like yours. It's fluid, Sometimes it looks different. So that's kind of what it's looked like the past few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That I for all those people that used to have the excuse that I don't have time for a morning routine, like that really just went away for the majority of people that, working from home and this and that. And so everyone just heard my morning routine, which is really great for a single guy who has space in the morning. And then you just heard a morning routine from another guy who's got 2 kids, a wife, and includes those other people in it to a degree. So it's look, it can be done, folks. It can be done.
It can be done. And it's funny you said that too, bro, is that's sort of become one of my biggest passions. I almost feel like it's a part of my purpose is to show people what's possible with time when you're living with intention. I think, I've spent the last 7 or 8 years trying to figure out, my purpose, or what am I supposed to do here? And a lot of people were telling me during that time, but you're a teacher, bro. You found your purpose. Like, it's to teach. So just teach. And I agree to that, or I agree with that to an extent. But I also know that my creative outlet was almost non-existent. My, the bigger impact wasn't being met. And I always felt in my heart that there was more. And I have so many teacher friends who are like, wait, you have a podcast too? Wait, you run a Vegfest? Like, where do you find the time? Like you must not have kids. I know, no, I got 2 kids actually. And they're young. And it's not like it's in your face, but it's like, why do we use the excuse time as our barrier when our phones are showing us we spend an average of whatever 2 to 6 hours a day in front of the screen? We're all up to date with all of our shows, but we don't have time. And I find there's a lot of correlation between obviously the media, but also like a lack of belief in yourself, a lack of, like searching that quest. And it's something I'm always, like in a lot of discussions with people about, because I think more and more people, especially now, are trying to find that. They're at home, they're not going to their typical 9 to 5, and they really want to do something. And it takes time, obviously, but I think that if the intention is there and you really, really want to put some sort of thing out into the universe to help people, and that's a sincere intention, you can find the time.
Yeah. You said something. I'm here taking notes. This is just a quote. This is a quote that came out of your mouth early in that, and which was, what's possible with time when you have intention. And it's so brilliant. And that I totally agree. When people say they don't have enough time, I always gravitate towards they're not on purpose. I don't have the time. It's like, you actually have no priority, which means that you are not in touch with your purpose. You're out of alignment in your life. If you don't have enough time, there's a lack of alignment. Even if you feel passionate about what you're doing, there's some bullshit in there. And I love what you're saying. Like that intention is, and starting your day with that intention is a great way to pull everything into alignment every time. And so this is what I love about talking to you right now is there's a lot of young people, a lot of young men listen to the show, a lot of young women too. And, what I got from when I met you and from just the beginning of the show is you talked about, you were always acting on purpose, even if it's not the purpose you're in right now. And I think a lot of people get hung up on, oh, what if I'm wrong? What if I commit to this purpose and I'm wrong? And yeah, it's okay. And there is no wrong, that purpose that, like Jess, like the thing you were doing before is what led to this. And in 5 years, you're probably going to look back on now and kind of you'll have a chuckle at yourself, like if I know that if I'm doing it right, I'm 38, I'll be 43. At 43, I'll look back on 38 and go, like, oh, I felt like,
yes,
oh, my shit was so important. It's like, your shit's not important. Like it is and it isn't, right? Like set an intention and be really on point with that, but also know it can change. And I think that a lot of people are so resistant to change, they don't recognize that it's okay if your purpose changes. And you're a really courageous man, because what I've distilled down is the thing that keeps people from committing to a thing, committing to a goal, committing to a purpose is a lack of courage, and this is where I see anger as a really amazing tool that I've learned to use, and I imagine you have too. And that is like I let myself be angry for a week a few weeks ago, and depressed. I got angry and depressed. It was great. One of the best weeks ever. Not really, but it's good to go down those pits. And I was really getting upset about what was happening in the world and a lot of things, and focusing on what I don't like. And what I love about, we coach a lot of people to focus on what they do want and what they do like. And once you get good enough at that, then you can go back and go, what the fuck am I pissed about? All right, let's get worked up over that. I'm gonna like bring that energy up. I'm gonna get mad. And it's like, all right, now the irresponsible, childish thing to do would be to open my mouth and then just tell everybody how they're wrong and what I don't like about what's happening and what I don't want to happen. But an adult, someone who has like done the work and is an adult, what you can do with that anger is channel into, okay, what do I want to be different about the world? What needs to be, because until you handle the work with yourself, you have no business telling other people what to do in the world, because your own personal wounds are just going to be projected out onto the world. And that's primarily what's happening. And get clean with yourself. Like, no, I handled that shit in myself. I've done that work. I've sat with myself. I've, disappeared long enough and meditated and journaled and hired coaches and processed and all this stuff. Get that right first. And then, first you're going to be angry with you. And when you'll know the difference, like you get to a point where you're like, am I angry with me or am I angry with other people? It's like, well, a lot of times, like, I'm angry with other people, but I'm also angry at myself for not stepping up and taking the lead and being more vocal or whatever. And so, yeah, just recently I let myself get really angry. And at the end of the week, I'm like, all right, so what am I going to do about it? And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I got this whole new plan. I got like years and years of things to do inside this new purpose, which is very close to like what I was doing before, but it's like way more on point and it's more global and so on and so forth. It's like, fuck, man. And now it's like, I've got this underlying, like, just running anger, but it's like feeding me, and it's feeding it. And I'm not taking it out on myself. I'm not taking it out on other people. I'm channeling it into work and into that purpose. So everyone listening, is like, if you're upset, that's how you channel it. You take that anger and you channel it into how you're going to help people. But if you channel it into how other people are dumb or other people are taking an advantage or whatever, it's just that you're going the wrong direction.
Dude, that I totally agree. And that was so spot on. And I think that anyone listening who wants to start this journey, or maybe they've started it and quit, I agree wholeheartedly that it is an inside job first. It really is. And I think the two most powerful things you could do is set a very clear intention. And even if the intention is just to simply discover your purpose, or if it is to serve the world, or if it is to, create a change that you do want to see, if that intention is honest, if that intention is constantly come back to, revisited, and then every action you take from that point on, you're being guided. I think you're being, you will find it. And I could look at Thrive Academy. I did 50 episodes because I said I would. I could easily look at that as a failure. We didn't get the listeners I thought we would, this and that. It didn't go the way that I had projected, but it led me to you. And it's led me to numerous other people who have allowed me to connect the dots and find my own path. And through doing that, I'm where I'm at today. And you, I mean, Mike, I know you feel me, bro. Like how many times have you failed? Like how many times have we fucked up and done something the wrong way? And it's like,
so many times.
It's too many to count. Yeah. And I think it's funny. My favorite, I'm a big hip hop guy. So Nipsey Hussle passed and I had a really rough time. With his passing. He was somebody who, anytime I needed inspiration, I watched some of his interviews. He's one of the most articulate people I've ever watched speak. And watching him and his number one thing that he would say, you'd expect some sort of like maybe a Tony Robbins answer for how can I be successful or how can I, pursue my passion. You know what he says? Don't quit. Just keep going. And his clothing, his whole thing was the marathon, and life's a marathon, and it's not a sprint. And if we stay on this journey with strong intention, dude, we're gonna be exactly where we need to be in the journey, and life becomes more fun and it becomes more enjoyable that way, I think.
Yeah. I want to give everyone a little tip around the purpose conversation is I don't maybe people are like hearing this tip and so I'm getting less DMs about it. Like, how do I find my purpose? But what I've gotten down to is like what people really want is to experience a sense of purpose. It's a felt sense. And you know what?
That part.
My like what I feel as my purpose today could be different tomorrow. Like I also like I cook breakfast. I got an Airbnb and I have half my team. There's 5 of us here in the house, and I cooked breakfast for the team, and I was like, that this is my purpose right now. I'm experiencing a sense of purpose, and and then I switched to the podcast. I'm like, oh, I'm having a sense of purpose now. And it's like, is this purpose greater than the purpose of cooking breakfast? No, no. But it's like, but if I go through the day and I don't, if I'm doing something where I don't feel a sense of purpose, I have to check in and go, what am I doing? And that constant attunement to that feeling, that sense of purpose, that's to me, that's my soul guiding me. My soul said, cook them breakfast. My soul said, uh, you know, do yoga this morning. So that I could be more prepared for the day. And I enjoyed it because I was experiencing that sense of purpose. And that's where that being in that constant state of enjoyment comes in really handy, even if I'm feeling angry and sad. I'm like, there's a purpose for this, and I can have a much deeper appreciation for it. And I think that if we are committed to being inside of that sense of purpose, then you'll look up, 3, 4, 5 years later, and people will be going, "Oh my God, like how are you living your life? You have such a sense of you know your purpose. You're so impressive because you know your purpose." And it's not uh, how I used to view it and how a lot of people view it now is like one day I'll wake up and the purpose will just come descending from the heavens through my crown chakra, and then I'll know. And it's like, it's not, kind of like, it's like one day I'll be meditating under a tree and enlightenment will hit me. It's like, no, bro, that's not how it works. By the way, this requires work. And it's something that's actually an issue we have in our country right now is like people would rather just be told what to do than to do the work. And when we say the work, like you got to take control of your own life.
You've got to,
that's a part of it.
You've got to take control. It is, man. And that's where the momentum comes in, right? The momentum comes from inspired action. Like the more we can feel that and just take steps forward, the more momentum we get. It's like, all right, the energy and it, like law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. But like like you said, like if the intention is clear and you feel it in your soul, you feel it, you just know what you want. It's crystal clear. You're looking for it. You're seeking it out. Everything you do has a purpose. Everything you do is leading you to where you need to go. And I think it's actually now looking back at kind of what happened when I surrendered the idea that, like you said, it's going to drop into my crown chakra and I'm going to be this enlightened, like it just isn't that. But when I was like accepted that, surrendered that, and was like, hey man, you know what? It's funny. My wife and I, our number one intention that we set the most is to be present and lighthearted. Those are like our two, I would say 60% of mornings. We want to be present and lighthearted. And it's funny because that lightheartedness, I think that play, that fun, that viewing this as a journey, and it's not this thing that I have to figure out by this deadline in order to be successful or whatever this destination is. But when it's lighthearted and it's like, hey man, I cooked my homies some breakfast this morning and that was my purpose. Now I'm going to meditate so I could be a better person, to be more tapped in. Hey, like, there you go. You just did it. You're there. You're on the right track.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it.
And yeah. All right. I want to take a turn here.
Cool.
I was making some notes. I think people are full of inspiration at this point. Full of inspiration. I want to go back to could like having gone from like paleo to vegan, could we have done this 100 years ago? Or is this something that we now have enough nutrients, like enough variety of nutrients at our disposal to get like the proper amount of protein, vitamins, nutrients, all that kind of stuff? Do you think it's like
What
a newer, like people are more capable of doing it now? Like it's easier?
I, I think yeah, I think so now. Probably. I think back then maybe like geography, like where you lived would have been a big issue. And I think now obviously with grocery stores and all that, I think it does make it easier. And with Google and YouTube, you can essentially figure out how to meet protein requirements eating these foods. And I do think it's easier. I think it's, once again though, I think if you do want it to be sustainable, I would recommend maybe, I I don't know any vegans really who have been vegan for a long time who are vegan for their health. It's not. I mean, my dad actually is the only one. He had a heart attack at 48, and he's
Mm-hmm.
always done real bad with meat, and he took it out, and he's a new man now. But I think to answer your question, I think it is easier now. Do you agree?
Yeah. Like I look at like what it take to be a healthy vegan, and it's like it takes a lot of work. From my perspective, people probably look at how I eat now and think it takes a lot of work too. But you get used to whatever you're doing. But yeah, like being able to source, like if you look at vegan bodybuilders and stuff like that, like the hoops they're jumping through are not like probably not the way the average vegan is doing it.
True. Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah, oh my God, that's an understatement. Yeah, that's they're 3, 4 shakes a day, a lot more processed food, a lot more tofu and a lot more, tempeh, things like that. And
Yeah.
um, I think there is a big thing with protein. There's so much there, especially like in the vegan space, as far as like there's lots of they call like the protein myth and this and that. I don't know. I feel like I get enough. I probably get about 100 grams a day when I'm working
Yeah.
out. Maybe a little less, give or take. But beans, lentils, veggies, these things naturally do come with quite a bit of protein. And we have some really tasty plant-based protein powders. Hemp, we use a lot of hemp,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I think I'm able to get it in relatively easy now,
Yeah.
on one shake a day. But once again, I think that the technology we have now definitely makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I eat a lot less protein these days. I notice like, oh, if my digestion is good, then I don't need to eat so much protein. I just wasn't digesting all of it before. It's like I needed 200 grams because I was digesting 100 of it. But if I can digest all of
Right.
it, I don't need so much. I don't have to be so crazy. I'll definitely feel better for having done that. Uh, One of the things
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
I've been watching, and since COVID hit, I actually spent some time in Utah and talked to some people who are involved in ranching and all this stuff. And this will probably make you sad, and you may already be aware of it. But when COVID hit, and there was shutdowns of restaurants, and there were shutdowns of all these different processing plants. There was some major processing plants. By the way, like I learned some stuff. Like I learned that we're taking cattle and pigs and like growing them in Utah, and then they're being shipped to the East Coast to be slaughtered, processed and slaughtered, and then redistributed to the rest of the states. I'm just going, holy shit! Like, why don't we have a slaughterhouse near where the ranches are at? Like it's just very. It only takes one mistake or one thing to go wrong, and then the entire food supply chain breaks down. And so we're experiencing that right now, but people don't know it yet. Like, so the average person doesn't know that we're about to have a meat shortage. And especially if you're eating more of like the factory farmed style meat, it's about in the next year. Because what happened was the normal distribution channels shut down, and they had this flow. And so this one pig farmer basically had to euthanize a bunch of the pigs because of he's about to have too many pigs, not enough space. So no one's buying it. So the most cost-effective way for them to do it, and this is not someone who's doing sustainable farming. This is somebody who's just doing the good old factory farming shit. Euthanize the pigs, bury them. That was it. So that happened a lot, and it's probably still happening. But this past spring, when COVID hit and they shut everything down, that's one of the repercussions. And so this is why like a centralized anything is troublesome, is because there's no it's very fragile. And so no one knows that it's fragile until we have a crisis and then realize all of our systems are, because they're centralized, it only takes one thing to bring the whole thing down. So one of the things that's really interesting to me is one of the things I'm doing is, well, I'm picking up hunting again, just from like a survival perspective. Like, I know that if I kill an elk, I can live off that elk for a year, if I did it right, and but at the same time, like the average person, you live in LA, right? So you're probably not everyone can go hunting. That's like a rare, for as many people we have on the planet. Like if everyone went out hunting tomorrow, that would not work. But so what I think is going to happen is everyone is going to be moving to a more plant-based diet in the next year. And so, and I think that because of the vegan movement, there's actually like a lot of benefits. I was like, all right, we're about to have a meat shortage, but we still know how to get our nutrients, which is still a huge swing from the way that farming's done now. Is like, can we even sustain that? Are we going to have, like, if everyone goes plant-based, is that going to fuck shit up too? Like when I think about that, I was like, oh, everyone's going to go get there's going to be a huge swing in how people get their calories. And are we growing enough? And are people just going to have to eat a ton of grains and not as much vegetation? Like, have you thought about this at all?
Oh my God. Honestly, I think about it every day. I'm very, have you ever heard of Zach Bush?
Yeah.
The
guy out of Virginia.
Yeah,
he does a lot of the gut stuff, right?
He does regenerative. No, yes, he does. Yes, he does. He has a nonprofit called Farmers Footprint, and it's all about regenerative agriculture, like regen ag. And not his whole thing, but one of his big things he touches on a lot is starting your own garden.
Yes.
And really like central, like really having, that push for Americans to, take some of their lawn, which we've actually done recently. I'm real excited about it. I just made some basil pasta yesterday with my own basil, my own tomatoes. It was really cool, man. But that's a side note.
That's great.
But yeah, I have thought about it. I have thought about it a lot. And I think that it's true. And I think you're right. You're spot on. But I hope that I don't know if mainstream media will ever get behind it, but I hope that somehow this starts this conversation with more people start their own gardens, more people start going to farmers markets, not demanding, but asking farmers to grow certain things that they do like. Well, that's actually helped. We have.
Yeah, a lot of people, I've heard that home gardening is at all-time high. Like these companies that sell home garden supplies they're running out. They're being sold out of stuff. It's incredible. That's another thing besides hunting. I'm nomadic still. I'm looking for a home. So you have to have a home if you're going to eat plants because they don't move. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. And there's really cool ways to do it too. Like for you, yeah, that's tough, man. It's tough as a nomad, dude. You're just kind of everywhere. But a lot of people at home, and I don't know if you ever seen those vertical gardens.
Yeah.
Have.
Oh yeah. My buddy AJ Richards,
those are badass.
His family's in ranching, so he's got like all that like grass-fed beef he has access to, and then he has the vertical garden stuff going on in his backyard, and he's in the desert, St. George, Utah. And yeah, I was there for 2 months. By the end of 2 months, he had something he could give me that I could eat. And it was really,
wow.
Like if you start farming, like if you start gardening, you may be surprised at how quick you can be eating your own food. I'm really fortunate. The Airbnb I'm in. There's garden in the backyard. We day one we went and picked a bowl of raspberries, and that was one of our snacks. And it was like we didn't even have to hit the store. But the Airbnb has a garden. They're
Nice.
just like, yeah, have at it. There's a big apple
What?
tree. Yeah, yeah.
Mike, dude, of course you're at an Airbnb that has a garden, dude. That's so fitting for you. You're picking raspberries, dude. We were at Carpinteria yesterday, and we were walking by with my son, and we saw a blackberry bush, and we literally, our faces were just covered in blackberry juice, man. We were loving it. But I think that this whole thing, though, it's like, I am an eternal optimist, and I do think that although the landscape is super shitty right now, and the COVID thing, and just everything going on, and I know there's a lot of fear and a lack of a sense of control. And I do think a garden is a great place to start. Like all the resources are there, all the, as far as like YouTubing, how to do it, where to do
Oh
it. You
yeah.
can do it indoor, outdoor. Um, but I think that it is opening the dialogue for the bigger question, right? Like what are we doing? Like our food system, like we need to rethink that, and we need people to come up with ideas and how to make it more localized, and where like we're all, otherwise I'm gonna move to Idaho, buy a plot of land, and start a commune. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm really like that's something that my wife is a nurse, I'm a teacher, we have friends who's a doctor, a farmer. Like we're like, dude, we could really do that. And I mention it now, and it's funny because so many people are like, they're asking questions like, are you serious? Because I'd be down to go. Like and it's like,
Dude.
it's kind of sad, but it might come to that.
All the benefits of living in the city have just been taken away. And I know in San Diego, I was talking to a friend who's got a big network of people, and a lot of entrepreneurs live there that aren't from there, and a lot of people just went home. They went to back to wherever they came from because there's like, they shut down the parks, they shut down the beaches, the restaurants. It's like, yeah, all the benefits of being in SoCal just kind of like, they don't even want you surfing out there right now, which is fucking ridiculous.
Fucking
Um,
ridiculous.
yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, yeah, don't go get fresh air and sunlight because you might get the Rona. And it's like, no, no, we know the fucking virus. If you're outdoors, is like you'd have to have someone sneeze in your face. This thing
Right.
isn't gonna like it dissipates quickly and dilutes quickly in open air environment. Now you don't put me in a cubicle next to somebody with this shit, or don't put me inside a house party, or like a gym or a yoga studio where we're doing breath work. Not a good idea. But at a park, all right, now
No.
I'm off on my fucking rant. Like, but anyways, the a lot of people, a lot of people that have been in the health field for a while. It's funny. I know people who they've been in San Diego their whole life, or they've been in LA their whole life, or whatever. And I'm literally getting like a text message from a new friend who's been in the health and fitness industry every week. Like, I'm looking for a compound. I heard you were looking for some land. I'm like, yeah, I was checking out Nevada. I'm up here in Oregon. Like, I'm scoping out. I'm doing some comparison. Like, where do I want to, settle down? It's like this whole situation has, again, it shows us how fragile the supply chain is, and how fragile city life is. Being in the city is extremely, there's a lot of convenience, but the drawback is like you're on top of each other. Like if a disease is going to spread, it's going to get to you in the city way more than someone who lives out in the country. Like if that's what you're concerned about, like move out to the country. You know, no one can sneeze on your face if you're on 10 acres. So it's
No, and then it also kind of gets you away from for us, it's Governor Newsom, who just at any point in time can just shut the state down. And it's
yeah.
like, my best friend is a hairdresser, and my other best friend owns a small business, went under. And it's like, we're getting fed up. And it's like, we have, now we're going back to school in August, and it's 100% online. And it's got people like me and my wife thinking, what if we're going to be homeschooling our kids, which we kind of plan to do? And I know you're homeschooled too, right?
Yeah, I was homeschooled all the way through. And I have a sister with 5 kids who homeschools all of them. Like, yeah, I come from a very pro homeschool, raise your own kids type of mentality. Yeah.
And look at you though. Like, look at you. Like, I always go to you and Jesse Elder. You're two people I know who are homeschooled, unschooled, who are two of the most creative, innovative, self-authorized people I know. And I think it's
And triggering.
very fitting. It's very telling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But because you're going against the status quo, because your ideas aren't what we were indoctrinated in public school, you just tend to be, I think people who are homeschooled or unschooled tend to be, more free thinking, independent thinking, um, even more like, I mean, if it was done well with their parents and their parents really were intentional. And I think, it's something that as an educator, I want to give that gift to my kids. And I'm personally more for a fan of unschooling. I
Yeah.
don't want to teach my kids the core curriculum that we're learning now. I think it's bullshit. And it's, unless it's what I teach, which is social emotional learning, which is way different. But
yeah, I mean, in school, like we're not learning the most important things. It's like physical, mental, and emotional health. How these are like the core. Like if you have that, you can have anything, and you can learn anything really fast.
Yes.
By the way, once you handle those things, learning is like constant and automatic. If someone's having trouble learning, it's a psycho-emotional. It's physical or psycho-emotional in some way, or it's all the same thing. Once you dive deep enough, you realize it's all connected. But yeah, it's like, oh, this kid's having a hard time learning. I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is going on in his life that's causing him to not be able to be curious and interested, because I think that the natural way of being is curiosity. And I think that the school system really, trains kids not to be curious. It trains people to have the right answer and not and have the right answer that's in the book. But you're right. I had, when all my friends had 12 years of indoctrination, I had 12 years of curiosity, in the formative years. That's a big difference. And, the thing I heard most growing up is, what about the social, aspect, like, did you get enough social activity? I was like, I don't know. I seem fine. Like, I've never, and the thing is, like, I actually think I was more socially advanced at a young age because I was interacting with adults more than I was with people my own age. And so I was I was being introduced to ideas by mature people versus a bunch of idiots. People, a bunch of other 7-year-olds. It's like, no, when I remember being 10 years old and, like, oh, I'm going to go to work with my dad, see how he interacts with clients. I was like, oh, I'm going to interact with my dad's clients. Like, this is a very different experience than, most kids who are in a classroom all day. And then they've got one teacher or they're repeating teachers, but you got 30 other kids you're around and you have one adult. Whereas it was like me and then, several adults. It's just a different thing. So I think that, a lot of the fears that people have are, that they haven't thought about it all the way through or been introduced to these ideas. And then now what we're facing is like, no, you want your kid to learn off of Zoom from a teacher with 30 other kids. You're going to expect your kid to sit in front of that screen and be curious and interested in what's going on. It's like, no fucking way. And then now this whole social thing just got pulled away. It's funny to me. A year ago, having social interaction was so important, but now it's not. And it's like, well, that was the chief complaint or the chief obstacle for parents wanting to homeschool is the social thing. It was like, well, now it doesn't matter. So, I mean, do you want your kids to have the best education possible or not? And I think most parents are way more capable than they think they are if they really set the intention, right?
Absolutely. And I think they have to have a fundamental belief like you do and I do, that curiosity, your child's curiosity, is the most important thing to foster. That it's
Yeah.
not about teaching, because, for example, I keep using my best friend Jen. She's amazing. She has 2 kids, and she was not a good student. She just didn't fit the mold. She didn't get math and science. It just kind of confused. She has a super successful hairstyling business that she runs. It's amazing, but that's her whole holdup, is I don't know what I would teach my kids. And it's like, well, like they'll show you.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
show
They'll
you
tell you.
if you learn. They'll tell you. And in the meantime, start a garden, right? Like in the
Yeah.
meantime, make some friends with the neighborhood kids. Hey, maybe even start your own little homeschooling pod. And that's
Yeah.
something that we're doing, is join up with 3 or 4 or 5 other families who have kids who are like-minded, and get them all together. And then, hey, Mike is really good at breath work and meditating, so he's going to teach the kids how to do that today. And then Jess is really good at cooking, so Jess is going to teach them how to cook a meal today. It's like you can really, like, the
But
way
how are they going to
that
get that
education
really good
naturally.
engineering job one day, at Google? How are they going to live out
Yeah.
my dream for my child? You know?
Exactly. And if that's their holdup, there is no real good answer other than what you just said. You're kind of trying to live out your child. Do they want that? I mean, if your kid turns 11 and you just see he really wants to be an engineer and that's what he wants, then yeah, maybe you can, reconsider your course of action. But I think it literally comes down to learning as a parent, which is it takes a while, but learning to watch, learning to observe. We're not the dictators telling them what to do. And this is, I've learned as a teacher. Like I mean, 7th and 8th grade, like everyone finds out I teach junior high and they're like, God bless you. You're doing God's work. Like, Jesus Christ, those were the worst years of my life. And I see it. And
Those
it's
were
so
hard.
funny because they were super hard. But the funny thing is that I think that they're so hard because we're constantly met with resistance, with teachers trying to control, teachers trying to tell us what to do at a point in our life where we're learning to think independently and we're like demanding freedom. And yet we're putting them in a school system that tells them to sit down, shut up, raise your hand to go. And no wonder that's such a tough year of life. Cause I'd be interested if, like, you met the same resistance in a different system or in a different way of doing it, where you're kind of more of the observer and naturally letting lessons unfold, which I
Yeah.
think can definitely happen, because it's sort of what I'm doing now. Granted, I've been an English teacher the last 6 years. This is last year was my first year teaching social emotional learning, but it was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed in my life. Teaching kids, we meditate for the first 2 minutes of every class. The lights are off, the music's on, and everyone's meditating. Then you start with, and we're teaching them how to breathe. And then, you start teaching these life skills, like how to pause right before you react, or how to watch yourself like a hawk, see the big picture, identify your emotion, like all these things like that we didn't learn, but that we kind of just fumbled around and fucked it up. And we kind of learned it eventually. We still don't really know it, but there's a whole thing here that, once again, going back to like the system being restructured and rethought about, if it doesn't happen, what we talked about earlier about getting a plot of land and doing it yourself with some other families is really, I think, going to become a very popular thing that we see a lot of free thinking, independent thinking families and people doing, because they're not happy with the way things look right now. And maybe they have young kids, or they just want a better life for themselves. And they're, like I said, commune. My wife hates the word commune. She's like, it's got such a bad connotation. Call it, it's an intentional living community. I'm like, all right, fuck it. It's an intentional living community. Regardless, it's a commune. You know what I mean? Like, it's more appealing, I think, because of all these systems that we're seeing how flawed they are.
Yeah. And living in that type of environment is going to require governance. And again, we're in a time in the world where we can have more sophisticated governance if there's enough people educated in that community to coalesce around certain things.
Right.
Yeah. But man, I
It's
had
true,
something
man.
I was wanting to say or ask, and I don't remember what it is now. That's all right.
This is
Tell,
good, man.
tell me about Vegfest.
Dude, that was badass, man. That was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me, man. I went real deep after I went vegan into like, man, I gotta, that intention of living purposefully and intentionally making a difference was huge. And have you heard of the book, The Artist's Way?
Yeah.
So I interviewed a guy, his name's Rich Roll. He's like an ultra endurance
Oh,
athlete. He's in the
I know
vegan
of Rich.
community.
I've listened to a lot of Rich Roll. Yeah, he's good.
Okay, so Rich is great. Me and his wife are working on like an unschooling system that we can roll out one of these days. But Rich, on my podcast, I had him on, and he recommended to anybody trying to find their purpose, The Artist's Way, and it's really cool. It boils down to a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. But one of the things it does is it just, she calls it give yourself an artist date twice a week, where you give yourself 2 hours to play, 2 hours to have fun, 2 hours to do whatever it is that you like. For me at the time, it was basketball and hiking. So I would just twice a week, I would just dedicate it, and there was no big thing behind it, just going and having fun. And the other part was morning pages, like 1,000 words a day. Don't skip a day, just 1,000 words a day for 90 days. And you just journal anything and everything that's coming up for you. And between those two, essentially that's like the platform. So I dove in. I said, man, if Rich and Julie are telling me to do this, man, and whatever, I'm going to do it. It seems interesting. So on like day like 86, dude, it hit me, man. We had just gone to Eat Drink Vegan. We went to the LA Vegfest, and it was like 2 weeks later, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, we have no event in Santa Clarita. We have no vegan restaurants in Santa Clarita. Like I said earlier, we're the third largest city in LA, and we have nothing for our community. And I know there's got to be a community. And that sort of was being shown to me, that your purpose is to create community, get people together, start a movement, create, or whatever that is. So it dawned, I said, hey, in a meditation, I'm like 25 minutes in one day, and I was like, you need to start a Vegfest in Santa Clarita. You need to create this event. And I went all in. It scared the shit out of me, but I'm local. I had connections with some people in the city. The mayor, was down with the cause. Up here, we're in support of it. And, we did it. Last year was our first year. We had 2,000 people come out. We, had a DJ and, just unlimited pours of beer, wine, and kombucha. It was just a blast. And it was just all vegan food. And it was like, and it's all vegan junk food, which is nice because most people who come are foodies. They're not vegan. They just come for like the food and drinks. And so, when you're eating like chili cheese fries and like a falafel wrap or some like nachos or some pizza, and you're like, there's no fucking way this is vegan. And it's like kind of like our way of showing you like, hey man, you can still have ice cream, you can still have pizza, you can still have chili cheese fries. It tastes almost identical now because of science. It's definitely not good for you, but you can still have those cheat meals or that junk food and enjoy this whatever, the cruelty-free lifestyle, whatever. And so It was rad. It was really badass. And the doors that have opened since then and the direction I've been led since then, I mean, talk about momentum and talk about growth and talk about, just new ideas and things have come, and it's been life-changing because now I'm kind of like going in this direction. Like I love events. And so I want to do something that's like a Burning Man, but like a Coachella. Like I haven't solidified the idea, but I want to host something like that. We have a big Central Park out here, holds 50,000 people. Something really cool could happen. So I think in the next few years I can roll something like that out. But yeah, man, that's sort of the journey with Vegfest, man. And it's just been such a fun ride, man.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it took a lot of courage. Was there like, how did you cultivate that, and how did you deal with, like, oh shit, I'm taking on a big thing, and a lot of people are watching me do this, and I might fail and all that.
Yeah. I think it was twofold. I think one is I have had a natural, belief in myself. I've known since I was a little kid. My dad was a minister, and my mom was a women's ministry leader in a Christian church growing up. And so since I was a young age, I've always been sort of taught that I had that, and that that I have a purpose and no one's here for no reason yet. So I've always felt that belief internally. And when I think that the second part of it was just that it did feel like through my, cacao ceremony, daily cacao ceremony, journaling, that it sort of chose me. Like it was like, it felt like it was plucked into my mind. Like it had been put there, like boom, and it was so strong. Like it was such a strong feeling that it really alleviated a lot of that doubt. Because I said, and Mackenzie, the one who owns Delighted by Hummus, she has this belief that your entity has its own energy force, its own life, it's its own entity, and so you're sort of just this catalyst that it's coming through. But I think having that separation, realizing the Vegfest needs to happen, I'm just the one it chose. It also kind of lightened the load a bit and gave me that faith that it chose me, and I'm just going to do my, 4 agreements. I'm just going to do my best and have some faith it's going to work out.
Nice. Love that. So what's the next move for you? What's the next move? What?
Well, now that events are fucked, it's like I've really had to do some soul searching, man, some more artist dates. And I said, well, hey, if I can't create community through events, I'm going to do it through a podcast. So it's the SCV Vegfest. So then I said, well, I'm going to start a podcast called SCV Native, where I just interview local people and somewhat local people. It doesn't have to just be, but just people in this huge ass city of mine who are doing epic shit, who are trying to bring about change, who are trying to make a difference, and showcase them on my podcast, and just create an incubator, a local incubator of like-minded activist type people who are down for the cause. And when events do come back, because I hope they will, I will have that community to roll right back into the Vegfest and any other events. So that's sort of where I'm at, like, as far as today.
Cool, man. Well, where can people find more about you?
Well, I've gone pretty much off social. I'm still on IG. I check in, a couple times a week. So probably just there, at Jess Guidroz, but then scvvegfest.com is our website. And then check out, and then just be on the lookout for the podcast, SCV Native. I think it's going to be something special.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. This is a lot of fun. Enjoyed chatting and chopping it up with a vegan for once. I don't do that often.
Yeah, dude. No, for sure, man. Thank you for having me, Mike. I love what you're doing, man, and your consistency with this podcast, the passion that you live every day with, and the freedom, and your spirit is so contagious. We need more people like you, brother. Thank you, man.
Appreciate that.